For all of you out there listening, if you are in the market for any kind of software development needs, check out Studio NoCode. It's our agency that's built on Bubble experts with nearly a decade of experience building all kinds of Bubble apps, marketplace, social network, payroll company, catering business, data room, ad tech, legal tech. We got a little bit of everything. We've seen it all, and that helps us translate all of our knowledge into your app to build the best product for your customers. We built it professionally, we built it to be secure, and we built it to scale. And we're going to do all these things on time and on budget. So if you are looking for help getting off the ground, getting something to market, or anything in between, give us a call or an email or a carrier pigeon or whatever you want. Studio-nocode.com. We'll probably be there.
You're listening to This Week in No Code plus AI, with weekly episodes sharing the latest advancements of AI, plus exclusive interviews, founders using these tools. So without any further ado, let's get started. Welcome to This Week in No Code. I'm your host, JJ Englert, here with my co-host, David Pal. We're getting ready for BubbleCon next week, but still have a fresh new episode for you this week. We're bringing on a Bubble tier gold agency onto the podcast, talk about actually how he's been bubbling longer than both of us, which is pretty crazy, how he's reached gold status, and just generally what he thinks of the no-code industry, AI industry, and how he's positioning his studio with all of these new recent updates. But until then, we got some other news of the week. Pretty soon, Sam Altman's going to be by himself in that office. I'm telling you.
Have you seen the image? There's someone who,
I have.
the founding,
and he is by himself in that office. Yes, but it keeps going. So, David, why don't you get us started with some other raunchy news between WordPress and WP Engine?
Okay, WP Engine, a $400+ million a year company.
400+ million.
400 million. They're backed by private equity, backed by Silver Lake.
Oh my god.
Huge company. I feel like, and maybe this is just how the algorithm is curating to me or whatever. I feel like the founder of WP Engine has been way more vocal lately, and like not like vocal as in like saying bad things, just like around a lot more and kind of flaunting how well they're doing. And basically it rubbed Matt Mullenweg, the CEO of Automatic, which owns WordPress.com and was the creator of WordPress.org, which is an open source and web platform, website builder, powers 4 in 10 websites. 40% of the internet runs
4 out of every 10.
Yeah.
Nuts.
40% of the websites are built on WordPress. So basically, WordPress is a free-to-use web hosting tool. But you have to set up servers. You kind of have to set it up yourself. So tools like WordPress.com and Automatic and WordPress Engine are plug-and-play systems to help you get it up and running.
Yeah.
And so basically, the two CEOs are butting heads. Automatic is basically claiming that WP Engine is confusing people over the use of the words WP, and that it feels like they are part of WordPress, and that it is the WordPress
I can see that.
And they did not pick those letters by chance.
Right.
They picked them because it stands for WordPress.
Yep.
But they claim that WP, those two initials, are not covered in their trademark. They're just two initials.
Yeah.
And so basically, the CEO of Automatic has been trying to get WP Engine to license the letters from them.
Yeah.
They said no. He claims they've been stringing them along, and basically the CEO of Automatic fires back and says, "This is an open source tool. You guys are making $400 million a year. You should be contributing to this open source platform, and you should be helping to make it better. We do at Automatic also making $500 million a year, right? We are contributing back to this program.
You guys are making the money and not adding value in that sense. You're just taking on the money.
Yeah, and you aren't. And so Automatic CEO Matt Mullenweg basically goes and says, "Hey, well, I'm going to shut off access to the WordPress servers to you. Like you're not taking advantage. Like you're breaking the rules, the community rules." And so it's a crazy thought that like this one. So all of these websites that are built on WP Engine now can't get updates on plugins, on security, on themes. Like they don't have
which is
access to
big.
all these things. This is like a kind of a big problem. And basically this tiff between the two companies is now affecting customers.
Yep. A lot of
And
customers.
I think it backfired in Matt Mullenweg's face.
Yeah.
Like I don't think it looks good. Like, oh well, they took our trademark, and like we're gonna hurt you. Like that, it seems kind of scummy, and so people are pretty upset about this. And it's crazy. Like we talk about vendor lock-in, Bubble being, hey, well, it's a closed system, we can't control it. What are they like? This is an open source platform, and they're
Yeah.
still like putting their like pressure on how this all works. It's like kind of shaking the community a little bit, I'd say.
Yeah. And also WordPress's publicity about it essentially was like, if you want to take WP Engine's bastardized version of this, like using those kinds of words, like it was very strong.
Hmm.
And it kind of showed that messiness in public. And it's just like, like, this is getting
Yeah,
messy, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
And
and it's
yeah,
it's just it's pretty crazy. We'll see how this goes. I mean, it's like two billionaires going, "Hey, I don't like the way you play with my toys. You can't play with me anymore." It's like,
WordPress,
yeah, yeah,
WordPress.
and there's supposed to be a nonprofit in the middle. It's pretty sad.
Yeah. You know what else is supposed to be a nonprofit, David?
I
OpenAI.
AI.
Oh man, OpenAI. Their CTO leaves this week. Sam announced some other departures as well.
Head of
Um,
research, head of post safety or post training stuff, all unrelated to one another, apparently,
yeah,
and unrelated to their restructuring to a for profit.
which they're also doing. They're working on restructuring their nonprofit to for profit and then giving Sam equity in that for profit that apparently
He
he's not
claims
doing this
that's
for money.
he claims that's not true.
And he claims he's not doing this for money, but he drives around in what, a $5 million car or six
I mean,
million
he's a
dollar car.
billionaire outside of OpenAI. It's fine.
Sure. And how would you feel if you were Elon Musk that gave him a $50 million investment on a nonprofit, and then all of a sudden you don't get anything back on that 50, and then now it's a for profit and you have no equity?
Um, I mean, okay, so like the quick answer right off the top of your head is like, of course he's pissed.
Yeah.
But the flip side, he put the money in as a nonprofit with zero ability to get any return on that investment.
Yeah.
He believed in the mission of that organization. It has now worked, it has now made progress. It is a balance to Google's domination. That's kind of where it all started.
But
Now,
if you were the founder and you had people put in $100 million and then you converted to profit, would you not seek to get those people some equity for their initial investment? Or would you say, thanks, but no thanks? This is something else now. How would you approach that?
I would try make it right
Yeah.
by somehow giving Elon and the initial donors some equity.
And
Uh,
or a chance to get money back or
yeah,
buyback.
or
Yeah.
their money back. I mean, he's gonna raise
$1 billion.
$1 billion now. What's $50 million to shut Elon
Right.
up? Right. I do think it is a little shitty that like maybe he deserves some money if Sam is making money, but or anyone else is making money. But at the same time, if you want to build an organization that attracts the top talent, you have to pay them ultra competitively. And that's why people are getting $1 million a year in stock and salary and perks, whatever, at OpenAI.
It's unreal.
And so, like, you need to give them equity. Like, you can't be mad at them for
Yeah.
taking these jobs, and they're helping the organization. But I would still want some, like, it doesn't feel fair. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Um, But it's easy to play the other side and be like, well, Elon's rich enough, it doesn't matter. But on principle, which is I think what Elon likes to pretend and talk about. He's just principled. Um, maybe
Yeah.
it's not that simple. I don't know.
Yeah, so OpenAI had a lot of more departures this week, including their CTO, who's been there since 2018, and some other people. Sam came out and essentially shared the message that he shared with his team online. I thought that was a cool move, if that's true. Who knows? He's a hard cat to peg down.
Hmm.
You kind of publicly think, oh, he's just a great guy, but everyone leaving, it doesn't. Something's weird about all of this. Maybe it's just the nature of the thing. They've been there for since 2018. That's 6 years. That's a long time. They've made a lot of money. Maybe they just want to chill now, and that's okay too.
I don't know. Everyone that I've like heard that is like a researcher that goes into like a Google or OpenAI, like they're not driven by the money. Like the money, they have the money. They had the money a long time ago.
It's true.
Like now they've made 5x what they used to have, and now they really have FU money, but like
Yeah,
they had enough money before too.
yeah.
And if they're, I don't know. I don't believe, I believe that people like at these high levels are die-hard fans of what they're building.
Hmm.
And like a baby, like it's like abandoning a teenager, right? Like it still has so much more to grow. Um,
And
you
it's at
become
a
all
really
encompassing.
exciting time too. It's like, why
Yeah,
wouldn't you want to be there with the most resources in the world at the head of the game as a CTO of like
yeah.
it's just a little weird, right?
I
Like
just
why
don't believe
like
it.
something else is pushing you out then.
Yeah, unless you're like, all right, great. Well, I'm dying and I want to go travel the
Yeah,
world for 3 months. And
right.
like if you're gonna go work, unless they're being pulled by other money elsewhere,
It'd have to be a lot of
like
money. A
Ilya
lot of
raising a
money.
$1 billion seed round in 3 months.
Yeah.
I mean, but maybe they're already billionaires. Like, what can you possibly do? Like, if you have enough money, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Money's not going to
Yeah.
drive more. You're going to keep working. Why not keep at one of the most popular companies in the world?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Let's move on to another one that really blew my mind this week. Microsoft had their quarterly statement, and they came out saying that there are 48 million active users using the Power Platform, which is up 40% year over year. It's up 40% year over year, that 48 million. So that's huge growth. And 480,000 orgs have used AI powered capabilities, which is up 45% quarter over quarter, meaning there, 200,000 plus new orgs started using AI this quarter.
Yeah,
And their power platform is up to 48 million. If you were to take every platform we know of, Bubble, Flutter, Flow, WeWeb, all that kind of stuff, I'd say cumulatively they have 10 million users. Power Platforms is 5x the size of all of them combined. That is nuts.
that's crazy. That's huge. But
It's
what are people?
huge.
Do you know? Does it say what they're building with it?
It just said monthly active users and the Power Platform.
Like, what's the lowest
Language to create
unit?
apps, workflows, website.
Yeah, like what's the lowest unit of outcome? Like Zapier, you have Zaps, right? You
Yeah,
build app. Is it an app? Is it a automation? Is
it
it
could be
just
an
like
automation. It might
a
be an
help
automation.
FAQ page?
Yeah, it could be independent pages like that, independent sites like that.
Hmm.
Landing pages, call to actions, email collectors. Could be a lot of stuff.
Hmm.
But the fact that they're 5xing every other no code tool and we don't hear from them at all. Like as some of the leaders in no code, you don't hear of the Power Platform like on any kind of online orgs. Like I don't know, they're just
Yeah.
it's crazy. They have similar like a Salesforce and a HubSpot. Like they just have this
Man,
vertical trajectory that is just like is
I need to
huge.
just try this. I need to build something.
I know that's literally how I felt. I went on the platform and started going through the tutorials. It's like this is where 48 million people are a month. Um, yeah, it goes to show like when you're going to learn a new tool or a platform, there's so much that you should think about of like that ecosystem, and if you want to invest in that ecosystem and like look at the growth of that ecosystem, look at the
Yeah.
contributors, look at the sales, like when you go to learn something, you're betting on that ecosystem in many ways for your career, for freelancing, for contributions,
Hmm.
all that stuff. And so like yeah, if you look at it from afar, it's an ugly looking thing, and it doesn't seem like much innovation. But with 48 million active users, monthly active users, I mean that in itself is like, hey, you got to come check this out.
And it feels like, if I don't know, I wonder what the pitch is like if you're trying to sell. Are there like PowerApps consulting firms? There must be,
There has to be. I've
right?
never heard
I
of
think
one, but there has to be. If there's 48 million active users,
yeah, it's probably
there's got
like
to be a
Deloitte.
huge industry
It's
that
got to be, yeah, Accenture.
it's got
Accenture
to
is
be
using
huge.
it. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I don't know. I think,
I know
like
from the
if
NoCode
you're
Alliance
pitching,
job stuff, there was full-time developer roles for PowerApps, joining orgs that are using it and being their internal developers kind of thing.
yeah,
And then those roles are big. Like you could join big organizations that are using this kind of thing.
that's
It's like
so wild.
it's the Microsoft way of building internal tools kind of thing, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm curious what it's like trying to sell us a project
Yeah.
through Power Apps and
Yeah, if
being
there's
like
any Power App users
Microsoft.
listening to this, let us know. Come on the podcast and
Show us how to
tell
use
us
it.
what it's like in this mad world of 48 million active monthly users.
We should go on YouTube and find who like the most
That's,
prolific Power Apps video maker is, and see if they will come on and just
let's
talk
try
about
and do that. Harrison, bookmark that. Let's try and make that happen. One last news before we get on with our interview. Meta came out with some new AR glasses, or is it Orion glasses they're
it.
called?
Orion.
Orion glasses.
Yeah.
It introduced advanced augmented reality glasses. And it's really cool in this sense. They have glasses, they have like a wrist thing that you put on your wrist, and then like a compute pack that you put in your pocket.
Okay, I
So,
have to say before you
yeah,
move on, they've missed a real opportunity to take
what's the
that
joke?
wrist thing and put it around your waist and call it Orion's belt. No,
The compute could be that way. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I do agree. I knew there was a joke coming in there.
there had to be.
Um, I will say I was a huge Apple Pro Vision guy, right? And I have not tried this or anything, but I love the direction that this is going. This is a new form factor. You could actually wear these things without looking like an idiot, like you would with Vision Pro, walking around. Like they look like bulky sunglasses, right? Or glasses. But like supposedly there's like actually good functionality with them and good things that come with it to like add true value, real-time translation, among other things. And so this feels like a really good step in the right direction for Meta. And new cool Zuck is kind of, like he's getting some momentum back in his sales. He got some great open source AI algorithms going. Like Zuck might be making a comeback.
Yeah, I feel like Zuck is with the AI stuff. I mean, he's like really counterbalancing OpenAI and
Yeah,
Google. Like he's like, yeah, we're just gonna give it out. That's not
yeah,
why we the technology everyone can have. It's fine. Here's
yeah,
Llama. Here's like enough to get you going. It's pretty
yeah.
wild. I don't know.
It's
He's
wild.
doing good stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's bring on
Let's talk
our
about
interview of the week. If you're looking to learn the latest skills in no code and AI, you have to check out nocodealliance.org. No matter if you're just starting out or if you're a seasoned pro and looking to specialize even further, we have courses at all levels and in all different tools. And we're adding new instructors on a monthly basis. So go to nocodealliance.org, create your free portfolio, check out some of our courses, even apply to jobs while you're there. And then for employers looking to tap into the greatest AI and no code talent, you could post a job there for free at nocodealliance.org. Immediately access over 2,000 of the world's best talents. And if that's not enough, we have a feature where you could boost your job to immediately access 5,000 more no code and AI devs throughout curated networks that we've put together with some of the best developers there. So go to nocodealliance.org to get started, and I hope to see you there.
Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to bring our next guest onto the pod, Lucas Bennington, CEO, founder of Codi Technologies, LA-based gold tier agency.
That's right,
Gold
yeah.
tier bubble agency. Okay, the one I want to give the little background on how Lucas and I know each other. So a few years ago during COVID, or sometime mid-COVID, we were having bubble events, like bubble meetups in Los Angeles. And Lucas was the only person who ever kept his hand raised for longer when you asked the question,
who's been bubbling the longest? And Lucas always beat me.
Well, he beat you?
He beat, yeah. It was
Wow.
like
Lucas,
an
how long have you
extra
been bubbling?
8 months or a year or something
Yeah,
like that.
something in that range. Yeah, it's since 2016 range, I would say.
Wow.
Somewhere in there. I don't have access to that account anymore. I've tried to like dig it out, but that was a different stage of Bubble. So definitely appreciate the introduction there. But yeah,
Okay,
no,
so
it's been a
what do you
crazy journey.
before let's walk down memory lane for just a second.
Yeah.
What's your first memory of Bubble?
My first memory of Bubble, and this is something where I'd love to find a screenshot if someone has it, but do you remember the really old school Bubble tutorial section they had where you had like 10 lessons you could build kind of step by step an app? I think the last phase was to connect to the Spotify API or something like that.
Which is like
I
using
remember.
a plugin that's like deprecated or something now.
Yeah, totally. That was my very first exposure to Bubble. I actually heard about Bubble, I think through an AirDev blog post or something along those lines, and some content that had been put out about it. I got to figure out, I got to see what this platform is. I'd been learning full stack software development at the time. So I was like, okay, what are some intermediate tools? Like, if I'm going to build a software from the ground up, what could maybe that makes that prototype stage a little bit quicker? And I made a Bubble account. I made some really lame, horrible, and not responsive apps, but I got in there and I started making stuff that was a lot of fun.
What were you
Yeah.
aiming for? Like, what was the app you thought you were going to build?
Yeah. So at the time, just for a little bit of background, before I got into app development, I did website development. So a lot of my clients were running sites on WordPress, Squarespace, stuff like that. And as I had started to dabble in that world, we had some web app needs. And so I was really looking for some software to help me build a prototype of an assessment delivery platform. So they had an assessment they wanted to get out. It's like, this interface is pretty simple, just have some questions, have some responses, save the answers to the database. But it felt too complicated to build that on WordPress. And so that's where I was looking into it. So that was MVP number one. That was project number one of Bubble was.
Got it. Okay, so you're already like, you're a developer now. We've expanded the word developer to also include no code and low code. Right. So now you're a developer when you get started, and you're an agency. You're building for clients, right?
Yeah.
Websites, and now you need to expand from like the WordPress, which is in the news today. Well, we could talk about that too. And
Not for good reasons.
yeah. And now you're like, okay, great. I'm going to build some apps now. You hear about Bubble. You try to learn, or you like start learning.
I'm going through the AWS certification process. That was one of the main places I started in addition to Bubble.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, WordPress was my first thing too. Like way 2013, 2014, I was building WordPress sites. Not like on purpose, but like people needed them, and I was like, I could figure it out, and I did. And then eventually my job, I got hired as a filmmaker, and they're like, hey, we need a new site. And I was like, I can make it. And then I ended up just making a WordPress developer for them for like a year, and that worked out pretty good. Yeah, but WordPress was the gateway drug for me to get into NoCode, and then NoCode is gateway drug for coding. I think, it's kind of just get you there.
That's very similar to me. I think getting started on WordPress, even there were some people who said, oh, I just need this edit done to my site. I was a fairly techie person. I was like, I bet I can figure it out. And
Yeah,
exactly. There for around a bit.
But you've been running an agency for a while then, because even in 2016, you were doing websites. And so like agency running it's kind of like in your blood at this point.
Yeah, I've always been kind of that entrepreneurial type person to want to put things into my own hands and really work closely with clients. So I wouldn't call what I was doing back in 2016 really much of an agency. It really was me.
Okay. Yeah.
I was the agent.
That's how every agency starts, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I really, what I felt like I could always offer, even in my, most inexperienced days, was the ability to really listen to what the client needed and understand their technology problems. And I feel like that's been the common thread. I actually stopped doing freelance work in SOP the 2017 range, when that app I built on Bubble actually transitioned into a full-time role as a developer for the startup that launched out of that MVP. And so while I took a pause from agency work until the last I guess, hearing change. That piece of me, that kind of listening to the client and managing clients, has always been there for all.
Yeah. And do you dabble in other no-code tools, or is Bubble your main driver?
I'd say Bubble is our main tool. Every once in a while, we'll use some, I would say, the automation platforms like Make and Zapier. We use
Mhm.
a fair amount, but our bread and butter is Bubble.
Yeah.
Dabbled in some of the other ones from like an experimental standpoint, but we haven't used them too much. I think like Xano and Softer, I played around in, but they haven't made it into like client production apps yet.
Sure. What are some of the apps that you've built that has gotten you the gold status for agencies with Bubble?
Yeah, so I think for us, getting to gold status was a combination of the volume of apps that we've created, with a couple like cornerstones. So our biggest project was BetSmart AI. You can visit them on the web and also download them from iOS and Android. And the reason why that was such a big project was because of the amount of complexity that it went into building the software for it. So for context, it's a analytics platform for sports betting. I don't know
Cool.
how much you guys know about the market, but there's a lot of data that goes into that. And so we created a Bubble app that you can download on iOS and Android that processes all of that data and creates curated recommendations on smart bets to make, helps you track them. And
Cool.
going through that whole process, is really, I would say, a cornerstone of us becoming gold certified.
So
Yeah.
you built in Bubble using a wrapper like natively, or how did you get
Yeah.
into the app stores?
Yeah, that's right. For that project, we used the BDK wrapper, which was really perfect for our needs because we needed things like push notifications, in-app subscriptions, and stuff like that, really all in one. So yeah, it's a wrapped Bubble app on the App Store. And one cool thing about it is when it debuted on the App Store, top 100 or 99 overall on the App Store when it was
That's
released.
cool.
So a lot of people, are vaguely aware that you can get a Bubble app on the App Store, but to see one get so much traction and usage was really cool to see.
Yeah.
How many users has it had? Do you know?
I'm not 100% positive, but many, many thousands.
Yeah. And what kind of that's a hard thing to do, sports betting and crunching all those numbers. How did you go about solving that problem?
It took a lot of collaboration there. And I think some other people involved in the project as well could attest to this. We all thought it was way easier than it ended up being.
And yeah, was every agent
To feel the real-time information that people need, because all this stuff is super time sensitive. A team makes a basket in basketball. Every single sports book is going to update who they think will win in real time. And like a lot of information like that, your delay, if there's too much of a delay in those odds, the app becomes way less relevant. Real-time information is still critical. So we had to think about how we set up a system that's receiving about 500,000 new records and then a couple million updates to those records each day, and displaying that to the user in a resource effective manner. Like, what's that latency look like?
Right.
So there's a lot of trial and error to think about. What queries are we doing to optimize it? How are we storing the data to optimize it? Because, if it takes 30 seconds to complete a search, no one's going to want to use the app. And the state we got it to is really exciting. In that live odds situation that I mentioned, as soon as there's a database change, it instantly shows up in the client app. If, a line gets updated from plus 105 to plus 115, we built
Like
a
an
UI.
API that you're using?
So actually, this is stored from the Bubble database. So we're getting information from the Bubble database to the user who has the app open on their phone.
Yeah, but where are you getting the data in the database
odds
to
thing.
store? Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we created endpoints on the Bubble side that are being basically constantly
From different
like a web
APIs that
loop.
you were calling and using?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, that makes more sense.
You
and so-
can't be polling things. You need to listen. Like, it has to tell you when the update happens. You can't just every millisecond. Hey, any new odds? Any new odds? Like, you don't.
Yeah,
you don't know
totally.
what halftime is. You don't know. That would be a waste.
Have any of you built for QuickBooks Desktop yet?
No, I haven't. What's that?
It is just, if ever a client wants you to do it, just say no. It's the worst experience you'll probably ever do. It's a very, very old client where the client has to have QuickBooks Desktop open on their device. and then you have to be essentially pulling for it to see if it's online to retrieve it. And you have to build your own kind of SDK and a lot of things for it. And we had to in my last company, and Aram was the guy that did it for us. And he was that's why he has no more hair. He was pulling his hair out for a year trying to do this thing.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Anyways.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty crazy.
Any of that local stuff, it's so cool you can plug that into Bubble. We built an app for a dentist office that connects to software that's hosted on premises. But anything like that, like if the server turns off, or actually in our case, if the software was running on 2 computers, we'd get the updates from both of them simultaneously.
Yeah.
And due to some Bubble reasons, it became hard to tell which one was the right one, like which for each 2 of the updates, how to redetermine that they're the same and to match it. I can imagine that QuickBooks desktop thing was a nightmare.
Yeah, it sure was. Yeah. So you're a gold tier Bubble agency. What does life look like for you right now as an agency owner? The industry is changing rapidly. AI is changing rapidly. What does life look like for you?
Yeah, I think that in a lot of ways, no-code development was like the Wild West. I don't have the strongest development background compared to, people with like a software engineering degree. But I did get a lot of exposure to that side of the world, and I saw a lot of the practices and work with people with a lot of experience in that space. So for the longest time with Bubble, I felt like there weren't really any best practices. There wasn't really like a standard. And in a lot of ways, no-code developers were relearning things that had already been solved by software engineers. Like it's just that skill, that information had transferred. But I think we're encountering the same thing in the agency space as well, where as a Bubble agency, we're encountering a lot of the same problems and questions that other digital service agencies have encountered in the past. And what I'm really focused on is what can we learn from, software development shops that have already been around for a long period of time, so we're not tripping over the same blocks. So what I mean by that is how do we get our message out there? How do we, understand and learn from our clients? How do we create processes around things? Really to make sure that the benefits of no code and the speed and time to market and all that stuff that all the agencies, including myself, talk about, but those benefits are being passed on to our client and that they're seeing that quicker turnaround. Because, if we're inefficient or, if we're not utilizing no code to its fullest capability, we still might be faster than a custom development shop, still might do a really good job, but I don't know if it's as good as it could be. So that's where a lot of my time is spent right now, is thinking about, with all this excitement in this area, how do we do a good job for our people?
How do you, so thinking about the code agency, a traditional development agency versus a no-code agency. A couple, I guess it's almost a year ago now, I don't even know. We had the CEO of Glide come on, David.
Yeah, about a year ago.
Yeah. He came on and he was like, we want to build Glide in such a way that it's so easy to use, we don't need agencies.
Yeah.
We talked about it after, the agencies provide other value to people who don't have technical teams or product teams to do stuff. But in a world where like no code, the value is speed and anyone can hop in, and like, why build a no code agency at all and not traditional development agency?
Yeah, I think that I've thought about this a lot. And what I've noticed is that a good portion of our clients actually already have technical resources on their team. We have quite a few tech companies that are our clients, and we're still building tools for them. And I think what you're talking about applies to also AI in development, because I think there's a similar concern of like, well, if AI can build the app, how much do we need? 1/10 of the engineers? Do we need less or anything like that? I think the value that an agency provides is being able to augment a team, be able to come in from an outside perspective and really listen, learn, and apply kind of best practices to an organization. For example, if we're building an internal app, because we're a team of people who work on many apps, so we've had a lot of exposure, we can take processes that they're doing and introduce them to new ideas that can speed things up. and solve really complex information architecture problems. So I feel like even if you get a glide or a bubble to a place where a team can really pop in and build it themselves, which I would say those tools are at a spot right now. If you give someone a year to work with Bubble, I think they could figure it out. And I think they can build really great
A
workflows.
year, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think just a lot of people don't want to spend that time.
I don't know if a lot of people have the time.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where we can get people going and then show them just the important stuff that they want. It's like, okay, great. We'll build a framework for you guys as the agency to get you started. And then we'll do some trainings and workshops, in person or virtual, to get you guys up and going to show you how to make the changes you want.
Yeah, I think there's pluses and negative. I think the plus with being a bubble agency is you can go in there and build stuff faster than they can. And you're supplementing, and so you're able to bring stuff to life faster than a traditional team, right? And
Yeah.
so it's these small bets are coming to life really quickly, which is great. The plus. I think the negative is for people that aren't aware of no code, like how do you sell them on that kind of stuff? How do you even find those people? Because it's still such a small thing that still not many people know about. And so it's like, great, if you know of no code, the sell is going to be much easier because there are a lot of benefits with it. But if you don't, then you're selling no code and all of the positives that it comes with as well. And that's a much bigger sale.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. I think that for finding people who know they need a bubble developer or they just want bubble help,
So much easier at that point.
Yeah, they're just making a choice at that point. There's lots of qualified people to help them, whether it's individuals or agencies.
It's not as popular as you think. It's hard to find a good bubble developer, I think.
That's true. But it can be done. Right.
Yeah,
And
sure.
we'll say, hey, here's how we see it. They can plug us or not plug it. But for those people who don't know about no code, because we have a couple clients who are in that space as well, but they couldn't care less that we're using Bubble as our choice of development.
Right.
I think what it does is it changes the nature of the development team that you run. I would say for Codi Technologies, our team is a lot closer to like business analysts and business consultants in working in client engagement rather than traditional developers. I feel like that's what no code brings to the table, is that there's less of a kind of chain of authority. Like if you've worked with a traditional development agency, you might have the business analyst on the call and the project manager. And then those people are putting their heads together to relay development ticket to a development or design team. And it creates this whole process. Whereas I feel like when I'm talking to someone who might not care what Bubble is, what I can explain is that by working with us, you're working with the same person really throughout the whole process. And the people that join our team do have that kind of business analyst background, so they can really kind of understand what the company needs and build it themselves without playing this telephone game, relaying requirements. Oh, there's a customer request. Let me create a ticket. It's just a lot more contained. I feel like that's the value prop you see with no code compared to a code.
Well, you just need less people.
I kind of want to ask the inverse question, from like the other side. That is the pitch to get a client onto the team or to sign up, right? With any no code agency, there's some variation of that. But from you as the agency owner, right? Like who's built freelance and agency on different tech, doing different things, like the world of no code, the world of problems you could solve and companies you could work for with no code has to be smaller than the number of companies you could work for if you had a full development agency. And the price you can pay the price you can charge is probably higher with developers, and the length of engagements are probably longer. And so like when you compare the two businesses, like even though one's a no code agency and one's a not no coding, right? They're like, the business fundamentals are pretty different, right? Like there was a post by Jesus from the low code agency. And I think like they had done 300 apps in 3 years. And like the average price per app was like $10,000 or something along some magnitude around there. You would like, if you built 300 apps in code, like that's a much like 10 times the size, right? Like that's 10x.
You probably
That's
couldn't though,
pretty,
you know?
yeah. And so like,
Yeah,
I
you need
guess,
a huge team.
yeah, I mean, you would need more people, but you can find more developers that have kind of this knowledge set, these best practices already
Yeah,
established.
competition's greater too, though, because it's a much bigger market. It's a much more developed market, so it's competitive.
Development, I mean, I think it's all, I mean, not all, lots of relationship driven. It's the same sales problem.
Sure.
Um, but it feels like, this is the question I struggle with, right? I don't know the answer to this. So I want to hear your answer, Lucas, is like, why build a bubble? Like, what are we, if Bubble's not helping us to build a bubble agency, right? Like, why
Yeah.
not hire 3 developers and be the business analyst and go build an app? And
Whatever you need to build in whatever
yeah,
technology.
Yeah. I think that, so it's kind of a branch of our business, and this kind of ties into my background. We definitely do kind of fill that consulting or systems design role. And sometimes that includes designing systems that aren't just using Bubble. And so we can build and coordinate those projects, but we'll say for Codi Technologies team members, we do hire Bubble developers. So to kind of keep us focused, we wouldn't necessarily like, at least in our current size, have like, okay, here's our, Swift developers over here and so on. So we are kind of specializing in Bubble in that side. But I feel like those projects still exist, but I think we're entering a new style of development, especially for first-time founders and kind of new products to market, where I think what I'm sensing from the customer base is that there's a decreasing appetite to build a very expansive MVP in code. And there's a couple, I would say bids or projects or proposals we've gone up for where a code development agency is also competing with us. Like they brought in a traditional development agency, us, a couple other options and whatever. And what I've noticed is the customers are looking for that lower price point and expecting more of an iterative process. And so what I would wonder is, and I don't know the report that the low code agency, has created or published, but what I've noticed, at least from my experience, is that for some projects, we do like a one-off and then you're good to go. But I think the LTV of a development relationship now, because of the changing ways that people are thinking about software development, is higher than that original scope of work. And that we're much more quickly moving to a version 2, version 3, version 4. And like, for example, in one client that I'm thinking about, we're on like version 3 in a 3-month engagement. We built the first version, they took it out, they got customer feedback, and we've been iterating pretty quickly and helping them find product market fit. So I don't know. I do think those jobs still exist out there, and the appeal of a standard development agency is nice. I feel like that number of those jobs is probably going to drop. We're looking ahead 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I don't know where the puck goes to, like what the future holds for it. But we have a skill. It's when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Right. And so like we're Bubble devs. And so we're like, well, we could solve it with Bubble. We should solve it with Bubble. So let's build a Bubble agency. And, it's interesting because like I think about, one of these entrepreneurship groups, and there are a lot of agencies. And there's an Uncork agency that's doing tens or more millions of dollars a year in enterprise client work. And there are development agencies that have like 50 or 60 or 100 developers, and they're doing tens of millions of dollars in revenue. I think like how many Bubble agencies can exist to do that? Like, is there like, and this is just such a small subset of the world, and I can find 5 or 6 50 plus team agencies. And I don't know how many people are on your team, but like Zero Code's pretty big, Rapid Dev's pretty big, Air Dev. But like, could there be $100 million in Bubble work done a year? Is that the market we're all sharing?
I don't know. It seems like a lot. I wouldn't say
you think 100 million in Bubble, like to be spent on doing Bubble work, agencies or not, or hiring events.
that's probably 100 million, probably looking at 1,000 FTE equivalents. Is
Yeah.
that right? Is that roughly where?
100 grand times 1,000.
Yeah, somewhere in there. Feel like, yeah, I would be curious to see where that goes. But what I would think about it is, and I think that
It
this
just
is
says no.
where
You seem so
do you
confident in
think
that
No,
now.
no, I think it's like 10 million.
You don't, okay, you
Straight up.
think there are only the
Yeah.
equivalent of 100 full-time bubble jobs worth
You were
of
talking
work.
agency work.
Pardon me?
You were talking agency work. I thought it was agency work only.
Agency. I mean, sure, we could focus just on agencies.
I
You don't think there are 1,000 people working at agencies now?
don't think so, no. Not making that much money to make it worth, like, yeah, there's a lot of offshore people that are making, $30, $40 an hour kind of thing that aren't making $100,000 a year. So,
But
in
even
terms
at
of 1,000 people,
$40 an
probably-
hour, that means we need 2,000 people.
I
That's
don't
80
know.
grand a year at $40 an hour.
You're making a compelling case. I just don't think the market is that big for it. I don't know. A couple thousand developers, fine, sure. But like, $50 million of like, market served each year from Bubble. I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, it would kind of get the report out on that. What I'd like to see, and I do feel like how we did that number bigger is, I think we focused less as, no-code agencies on being a no-code agency. Like, obviously, for people who find us
Yeah.
through the Bubble sphere, that's great. And we can speak that language. If you've already started, we have several clients like this. They've already started building on Bubbles. They love Bubble. They're excited about it. Let's talk in Bubble terms. But I think the value of agencies that we can provide is so much greater to the development market as a whole without mentioning Bubble at all, other than like, oh, what's the tech stack? How is it being done?
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I mean, there's really, obviously we are probably all aware of the things that Bubble can't do very well. But as long as we kind of like fit into that realm, I want to see, my agency, but also other people in the Bubble space going up and competing with traditional code agencies, because I feel like that's really, I feel like where the market share is to be captured, not really so much, inside the Bubble ecosystem. We're just
Yeah,
trying
I
to
agree.
reinforce
I
it.
totally agree with that.
But I think the problem you have is with going after traditional code, you can either get in with MVPs or brand new builds. Like, you can't
Or internal.
help them. For apps that are not built on Bubble already, you can't help them in any way to build on it, right? And that's a lot of development too. It's not
Yeah.
always just new builds. And so I think because of how closed the system is, there is a limit to either we rebuild as in Bubble, or I just can't help you because you need a Swift developer for the, even if you need 10 Swift developers for the next year, I can't do it because we're closed off,
That is a really interesting point, because I'd be curious to see how the kind of market sorts itself out, because I would wonder, speaking to other agency owners, is it worth taking a loss at rebuilding some of or all of the software that they have and getting it back up to speed? We've done a couple app transitions, is what I've called up, where people are tired of their current platform. And we've used Bubble to pixel for pixel, essentially recreate what they have with a couple tweaks.
Yeah.
Process, while intensive, it's usually like a 2-month process, like not this like multi-year long project to get there. And the other thing I think that's nice about Bubble specifically, and just these no-code tools, is with the open API, you can build extensions into their existing platform. So like,
Yeah.
a lot of the software we build
Great.
is really layer. Like, we've done a lot of work in Salesforce, and we keep their existing Salesforce running as it is. We build a couple classes in Salesforce that, send the data over that we want, and then the Bubble app is taking care of the rest. And so, I think, because they've opened it up a bit, there is potential to expand. But to your point, JJ, it still is a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I think like,
yeah.
like $100 million, I'm not saying it's not a lot of money. Let's go get the whole thing. But, like, as a not gold tier, right? I don't know how many gold tier agencies there are, but I know of at least 4, 5, right? Like, if they're taking most of the work, then how it's hard, right, for everyone below to be fighting over $20 million of possible work like around the world, right? And like that's just a small, like I think that's less money than's probably spent in all of the arcades all over the world, right? Like in like a very small like other segment. And so one of the things that not always, I've been thinking about recently is like, are we trying too hard to make a dollar? Right? Like, are we going after, like, is this or Harrison would say, like, as Sean would say on My First Million, like, is this a 10 out of 10 execution on a 2 out of 10 idea? Right? And like, are we doing a great job of just not going after a big enough opportunity?
It's a fast-reading concept because my perspective on no-code, and I'm sure as you guys being longtime no-code users, is that we've seen a huge growth in the market of no-code. Like,
Sure.
even in the last,
But not the level of AI growth. Sure, no code has grown, but AI growth is like grown,
right, totally. But I feel like this could be a separate topic. Those two things I feel like are pretty nicely tied together.
They
'Cause,
complement each other nicely.
they're both abstractions of, base level code and all that way. What I've noticed is that just through the merit of growth and interest in no code, the skill set we've developed, compared to 2020 to now is like
Yeah.
probably 5 times more valuable than it was back then. Like it was a joke almost that I was a bubble developer like in 2018.
And the bubble apps that we were building with the responsive and everything, it did look like a joke for the most part.
Yeah. You could detect every bubble app ever.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Like, and you had like more than 50 users and it would like slow down to a halt and everything.
Yeah.
It's amazing how far it's come. But I feel like, I think that with the growth in the no-code market, all of us in that space can expect to keep growing because I think that we're going to be trending to more no-code tools that last over the next 10 years. I think back to that concept of like learning the agency business fundamentals. That's why I'm so excited to be exploring those and building them up because our market's going to grow just because there's more interest in it. But I also think for all of us as agency owners, we need to get out there and also try and grab clients that don't really care about no code and bring them in. Because I think if you're just relying on the bubble ecosystem, you get a lot of people, as I'm sure you guys have encountered, who like maybe play around with the bubble or they see a bubble ad, build any app in minutes. And then they're like, oh, well, hiring you guys should be $200 to rebuild.
Easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Build
It's like,
me
well,
a Facebook clone for $100.
Yeah.
Tomorrow. Totally. And I think if we're all focused on those people, that's going to be a really difficult way to grow a business. I think we will end up in a position like Low Code Agency where you have a ton of clients and not as much growth as you'd like to see. But if we can get out there and be more competitive with traditional development, that might be a more lucrative.
Not only traditional development, but I think just more no-code tools in general. I think generally because of their closed ecosystem, there is a limit to what you can do with Bubble. I think MVPs are great. Internal tools are great. Extensions of like what you were saying of software that you can API into are great, but there are limits. And if you look at Flutterflow example, they're building apps for Wendy's and other places. And it's because it's like, that's traditional code, and you can, put it on-prem. You could do all this stuff at that enterprise level that Bubble just can't get you. And so it's like, you're already kind of closed off with like certain types of apps that you can build with Bubble. And then I think you're a little closed off with how high you can go because those enterprise just expect so much more in terms of actually accessing the code and such. What are your thoughts there? Does it matter? Does it mean anything?
Yeah, I think it absolutely matters. And for a while, I've wished that these no code tools would let us kind of pull back the hood a little bit. And whether it's like an advanced feature or something you have to like make some acknowledgments to, really peel back the curtain and give that unlimited flexibility because you don't want to run into too many of those limitations or have to start building all these workarounds and other things like that because it becomes inefficient at that point. We have to, set up an on-prem database, tunnel into it with a proxy and retrieve information. We start to lose some of those no-code benefits. While I don't think it's like so limited that it just cuts off all of the enterprise opportunities. I
Sure.
totally agree with your point that it's needlessly complicated. And one of the things I love about the Flutter platform is that you can, they do give you the components, but you can
Mhm.
peel back and extend as you need to.
Right.
And that flexibility is something that I would say is really key in all of our projects. We had one app that worked out where we needed to build a custom wrapper because wrapping solutions on the market didn't do what we needed. And while that was good, and we were able to build it, it was like a pretty hefty endeavor, especially for me,
Yeah.
like learning how to navigate the Xcode environment and build an Android app and stuff like that I wasn't as familiar with. But, it leaves a little bit to be desired right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And then at the same time, Flutterflow just launched some of the things that's like, how can you just launch this? Like, for example, they now have different the database environments. And it's like, how have you been building in with Flutterflow with just a production database this entire time, and get versioning? It's like, how have you not? So like, the thing is, Bubble's so far ahead in so many ways, but some of the newer tools have some of the newer technology that do align better with enterprise use cases. But maybe they don't have the feature set yet to back it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do
Feature
you
setting
do you
compliance.
do you like kind of right on that thought, talking about catching up almost? Do you think Bubble's gonna be the powerhouse at the end? Like, I don't know, some of their more recent product launches have made me a little nervous that they lost the act of shipping. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, we still don't have mobile. It's another BubbleCon, and they haven't put mobile out.
Yeah, I would say Bubble has, that huge time to market advantage. And I would say, as a long-time bubbler, in the Series A, like right before that time, I was starting to get worried that I was never going to be able to launch a truly production-capable app on Bubble beyond, X number of users. They really squashed my fears after raising that money and building the engineering team and shipping a lot of, I would say, are necessary, and maybe some would say overdue performance improvements to really get us to a spot where, there's very few apps that come across my desk where I'd say, oh, we absolutely can't do this from a performance standpoint. But I do think we're in that like early 2000 social media era where no one's really caught the dominant, like no one's won the battle yet,
Yeah, for sure.
right? There's still a lot of viable options. And I think it really mirrors that. Yeah, early stage social media where you had all these options, all these angles, and then it kind of consolidated into a handful of market dominators. And I think, Bubble has all the right stuff to be that market dominator, but I don't think that battle's been won yet. It's really been obvious by how many new startups are coming out and how much traction other no-code tools have been having and, companies' investments in it, whether it's Zapier with their UI Builder, UiPath, 100 of them now, these tools.
Speaking of no-code tools, Power Platforms this week, Microsoft Power Platforms announced that they have 48 million monthly active users and their no-code Power Platforms, and 480,000 orgs have used AI-powered capabilities in Power Platform in the last quarter, which is up 45%. Monthly
there are
active
4
users,
million
48 million.
There are 4 million accounts
48.
ever on Bubble.
Yeah,
These are
right.
every month.
It's unreal. Like, I thought there were 40 million developers in the world, let alone 48
Well,
million
they
on
may not
Power
be
Apps.
developers. They're just people.
Yeah. Have you guys used PowerApps? But like, have you
No.
run through them before?
No, but to be completely honest, as soon as I saw that number, I was like, I think I need to start using Power Apps, even though it looks terrible.
Yeah, I think it's worth checking out. So PowerApps is like the low-code, no-code builder for the Microsoft suite.
Right.
Now,
Exactly.
a lot of enterprises love it because, like we've done some work in the public sector and, a lot of governments are Microsoft-based organizations top to bottom. And so when Microsoft releases a tool like that and continues to improve it, that's what they love to use because
It integrates into
even
all the
Power
data
Apps,
and everything already. It's
already
trusted.
installed. Yeah.
It's an approved vendor for the most part. It's an easier sell.
And then usually, unless they've changed it with Power Apps, I don't think it even costs an additional subscription. I think it's
Yeah,
actually
they probably
bundled
bundle it
together.
into everything. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I feel like if you can build more of those tools, I feel like that's what we'll see from a lot of our enterprise software providers in order to stay relevant. I bet you we see something similar and more stuff from Salesforce. I bet we see it from more like
Yeah.
ERPs as well, because the market wants non-developers, non-tech
Yes.
people to be able to solve their
Mhm.
workflows and not have to hire, Steve, the Microsoft enterprise guru at $375 an hour to, set up their thing.
Yeah.
And then hope
I think
the
a
guy,
testament to that,
can explain.
I think a testament to that is Canva.
Yeah.
Like all these companies need designs in some way, but they don't want to hire a designer just to do this part-time thing. And Canva has taken hundreds of millions of people all over the world and gave them some kind of graphical ability to do just enough. And that's where I think no code needs to get to,
Yeah.
is like just enough. And that's why I really love software, is because it is so easy to get into that we could do just enough for you to build most platforms, like internal apps or portals. And like, obviously it's very small still, but like, I think that's kind of where we're working towards, is enabling the general public to be able to do just enough to solve business problems.
And they know
Yeah,
who
that's-
knows the problem better than them.
Right. Right. It's hard to go get new money. It's hard to go hire. It's hard, get in an agency. You got to have some money to do that and be ready for that longer run, generally. So it's just like, hey, can you do it? If you can do it, we'll do it. But if
Yeah.
not, then it's probably something we can't do right now,
Absolutely. And I can't even mention how many of our clients have come to us who have some amount of technical knowledge. They're like, I built this master Google sheet. I built this really complicated Excel formula, something where it's like, I got us to here. I know there has to be a better way to do it to get me across the finish line, or I want to now turn this into a SaaS or something like that.
Yeah.
So I totally agree.
Those people are really special, by the way. Those are those people like that are in the orgs that just like have been given a task and they just figured it out, and they don't really have a name, or anything like that. They don't go under any labels, but like they're very special people, and they're usually like the first ones in the no code and kind of like leading that movement, but they don't identify as no coders. Like, yeah.
I love it. They're my 100% favorite people to work with, because they're so keenly aware of what the problems are and how to make it better, way more than us as outsiders can ever figure out.
Sure.
They really just need that last bit of technical expertise to like, account for the stuff they might be blind to, like, oh, well, how do we solve it if the system goes down? Yeah, that's great.
Or sometimes it's just their time. Like, hey,
Yeah,
they're
more
doing
their
this
time.
they're doing this on the side of something else. They don't have time for the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so they're like, great, this almost is enough for me, but I need more.
Yeah. All right. Well, Lucas, it was great getting you on the show today. Tell people where they can find you, your agency, should they want to reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. You can visit us on the web at coditechnologies.io. We're also available on LinkedIn or on Bubble's agency directory. You can look us up, Codi Technologies. We really love working with people like that we were just talking about. Startup founders looking to bring our first idea to market. We're enterprises who need that kind of workflow automation and internal apps to really supercharge their capabilities.
Awesome. And we'll put the link to your website in the description below. And we will see you next week at BubbleCon. So that's going to be
Yeah.
we'll see you in a couple of days. IRL. Otherwise, safe traveling, getting there. And thanks again for coming on the show.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right. See you, Lucas.
Bye.
Well, hearing from Gold Tier Agency, I'm wondering when Studio NoCode's going to get there. So you guys are doing good work over there.
We're silver. We got
You're
something.
silver. You'll get there soon. They should just give it to you because you work
We
there.
want to.
No, David
worth
Pale
it,
works
is that
there.
why?
He's been bubbling since 2016. He should get a Gold Tier agency.
Why don't I get a legacy bump? Like,
Yeah.
I've been here long
You
enough.
gotta get a legacy bump. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it probably helps that I left that one, so it's like, okay, you get a no JJ bump too. So
I mean, it's interesting. We did try to like push him off. Why not build something other than Bubble? He was still in Bubble. He's a Bubble.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of benefits to it. I can see why it's fun to build with. I do think that generally, this industry and no code agencies alike are moving towards all platforms, and it's just like, hey, whatever platform can solve this need, I'm going to do it. You look at low code agency, they were the Glide agency, like the Glide agency, and now they're, Flutterflow, they're in Bubble, they're in everything. They're coming in even the software, and it's just like, it makes sense. They have a big org, they got to feed it, and there's a lot of benefits of all these no-code tools that are solving problems in different ways. Use the right tool for the job.
Yep.
So
That's right. Well,
yeah,
I think that's it.
yeah.
This
Well,
week.
we will be in New York City in a couple days for BubbleCon. Otherwise, yeah, David.
We'll see you next week in No Code.
See you next week in No Code, guys.